Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Is World War getting closer? That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. This morning in Turkey, Russian fighter jets shot out of the sky by the Turkish military. There is bad blood between Turkey, a member of NATO, and Russia over the Syrian tyrant Assad. Turkey wants him out. Russia's propping him up, as Putin has sent planes and troops into Syria to destroy anti-Assad forces. The chaos we are seeing in the Middle East is now reaching critical mass, with ISIS launching terror attacks directed from Syria and Russia now destroying American-supported assets on the ground. A world war, while not probable, is not inconceivable. Today, President Obama met with French President Hollande in Washington for some tough talk about the ISIS terror attack in Paris.
It is a scourge that threatens all of us, and that's why, for more than a year, the United States, France, and our coalition of some 65 nations have been united in one mission: to destroy these ISIL terrorists and defeat their vile ideology.
So let's get this on the record. For more than a year, according to President Obama, 65 countries have been actively trying to defeat ISIS. 65. Yet the savages still hold major cities in Iraq, have a command and control center in Raqqa, Syria, and are fanning out all over the world to kill innocent people. So you might say 65 nations are losing the fight against ISIS. Or am I wrong? Anyone hoping for a robust anti-ISIS campaign announcement today was surely disappointed. The two presidents talked and talked and talked some more. Nothing concrete announced. No NATO declaration of war, no strategy on the ground, no new proposals. If ISIS was watching that press conference, they may have nodded off. Talking Points believes the solution to the Syrian ISIS situation lies in NATO declaring war on the terror group, mounting a ground force that would confront the savages where they live, and establishing safe zones inside Syria and Iraq where refugees could be protected so they wouldn't have to go all over the world. Surely the 28 NATO countries could accomplish that, surely, aided by other concerned nations around the world. But to put together that kind of a strategy requires leadership and muscle. The French president, who wants the action, doesn't have enough juice to do it alone, and President Obama is MIA on the NATO issue. So here's what's likely to happen. The ISIS killers will continue to ride out the bombings, will continue to export terror, and will continue to laugh at the weakness of the West. Only after ISIS attacks America will anything change. And that's the memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. Joining us from Providence, Rhode Island, Nicholas Burns, former U.S. ambassador to NATO, and from Washington, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. So where am I going wrong, Colonel? Did you hear anything in that press conference that was new today?
Well, no. President Hollande of France went home empty-handed, despite the nicey-nice. And the only real global reaction to this was in the Russian media, where they're outraged that President Obama didn't express concern and sympathy with the Russian pilots who were shot down. But, you know, the issue of a world war, it's not coming. It's here. It's just a different kind of world war. And it is global jihad. We won't face it. It's not as lethal as the first two yet. But it is there and it's real. And Bret Baier, looking at the situation in the Middle East earlier today, he described it as three-dimensional chess. I would amend that to say it's three-dimensional chess played by psychopaths. President Obama still does not begin to take this seriously. The region is spinning wildly out of control. Today we saw a very dangerous confrontation as Russia, which has been swashbuckling through the region, finally had somebody stand up to them, and the Turks appear to have been 100% in the right on this. And by the way, the Russian pilots are sloppy and arrogant, and no doubt were in Turkish airspace.
Okay, but I don't know if you want to shoot down a plane that's not a threat to you just because it wanders into your airspace.
May I just add, Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this aircraft was attacking. It was a pair of aircraft. They were attacking the positions of the, as you pointed out, the Syrian rebels who were fighting against
inside Syria, they weren't attacking Turkey.
Turkey is frustrated, and Turkish airspace has been penetrated at least a dozen times, and Russia keeps doing it. And
I just wouldn't have ordered
Erdogan-
that to happen. I don't think we need to do that.
I'm not sure I would have, but President Erdogan is a match for Putin when it comes to sheer guts.
But he's not a match for Putin when it comes to military power. Now, Ambassador Burns, I was stunned there was no mention of NATO in that press conference at all as far as taking any action, because that's the solution. Invoking Article 5, which President Hollande referred to after the Paris attacks. Where did that go? How did that disappear?
Well, I had been hoping after the Paris attacks that President Hollande, the French government, would ask NATO to invoke Article 5 of the NATO treaty. That's the article that says an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. He didn't do that. The French decided against it.
Why?
The French
Do you know
have had
why?
a highly ambivalent... I think so. They've had a highly ambivalent attitude towards NATO since de Gaulle's time. They threw NATO out of Paris in the 1960s.
But what do they have to lose now about invoking the Article 5? I mean, what do they have to lose by doing it?
The French have said, and I don't agree with them, but the French have said this can't be just a military mission. It has to be a law and order mission, and we have to have the Russians inside this coalition.
Well, they can
I think it would have been to their advantage to have invoked Article 5.
All right, so look.
But I think what
Go ahead.
I think what President Obama is trying to do here, he is putting together a coalition. He did announce with President Hollande today more intensified airstrikes against the Islamic State, which is positive. But where they need to go next, they need to build a ground force by arming the Peshmerga, the Kurdish forces in Iraq, and the Syrian Kurdish troops, and they haven't done that yet.
Wouldn't you say it's a little late and that nobody even believes they're going to be doing it? Because this has been going on close to 3 years now. And I mean, come on. You know, people are dying. They're dying.
I wouldn't agree
Attacks
with that,
are being
Bill.
launched. Why? Where am I going
agree
wrong?
with that.
Where?
Well, I think that we have been bombing the Islamic State for 18 months.
And hasn't really slowed them down.
The idea that we now intensify the bombing is the right instinct that President Obama has. But what's missing is American leadership to arm the Arab and Kurdish forces on the ground to strike at the Islamic State at their base in Raqqa in northern Syria, and to eventually take back Fallujah and
NATO
Ramadi
should be
and
doing
Mosul.
that. NATO
That's
should
what's
be doing
missing.
That. All right, Colonel, I know you disagree with the ambassador. I mean, I don't think you're not going to be able to protect yourself. America is not going to be able to protect itself relying on Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Jordan. NATO, why are we in it? Why are we spending $700 million a year on NATO? Why? I don't understand. If they can't do this, they can't do anything.
NATO keeps the peace in Europe. That's the real purpose of NATO. And in the Cold War, of course, it stood up to the Soviets. But the ambassador, he certainly has very good instincts, and I'm with him on most points. But airstrikes alone aren't going to do it. And even intensified airstrikes, intensified in terms of numbers, are meaningless unless you're willing to hit the right targets. And Obama doesn't want any collateral damage, no civilian casualties. So you can drop more bombs in the desert. ISIS isn't impressed. And if I may also comment about, the ambassador made the point about arming the Peshmerga. We may be surprised at who does that, because there are two things Putin is definitely going to do in response to the Turkish shoot-down. One he may do. He is definitely going to intensify the bombing of the Turkish-backed Syrian rebels, the Turkomans and others, going to hit them very hard. He's going to look for an opportunity to embarrass Turkey in return in the short to mid-term.
Yeah, he'll get Turkey, right.
Long term, he's a strategic thinker. He may swing to the Kurds, swing to an independent Kurdish state, arm the Kurds, and play that.
Against Turkey. And yes. People have to understand that Turkey is a member of NATO. Yes. So as I said in the top, gentlemen, World War is not probable, but it's not off the table entirely. And we will continue the discussion. We appreciate you guys coming on in tonight. Next on